What's up, guys? How you doing? Maggie here. I'm back. Podcast number 2. Thank you for watching. I'm glad to be here. This is an experiment right now to see if, this is going to be cool. I have a YouTube station, so thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching. I can't even believe that people watch each other on YouTube. For the longest time, I didn't watch anybody on YouTube because I thought, I like face-to-face interactions, and it wasn't really the generation that I grew up in. It wasn't at all. I was the last generation, as somebody born in 1978, to get through all of high school without social media, and even a couple years of college before even getting on the internet. So, I don't know, it's a learning curve. It took a long time to actually jump on the bandwagon. I don't even know what bandwagon mean, actually. I hate saying things that I don't know what they mean. But to jump on all this and kind of get involved. So here I am. I have my own YouTube station, which is funny, but we'll see how it goes. I really like feedback from people. I like conversations, and they're happening online now because we're alone a lot of times. So I'm talking to the camera and maybe you at home or wherever you're at. So again, that's a lot of rambling to say thanks for watching, and I hope this works out. Okay, so here I'm in Greece. You can't tell. I'm in an Airbnb. I'm 20 minutes outside of Athens, and I'm all dressed up because I'm going to go out dancing later. But the clubs don't open till midnight here, which is super cool. I like to be in the night sometimes and see what happens at 3 a.m. with the music and with the crowd. So the clubs are super fun. If you're ever in Athens, check them out if you like that kind of thing. I like techno and house music. There's some good DJs that come through here. Obviously, it's a major city. So, and it's actually a secret dream of mine is to be a DJ. Although I don't know anything about music, I just want to be up there and be have my hands on all the gears and gadgets and wear a cool outfit with sparkles and maybe incorporate some LED lights into my top and smile at people and show up with an entourage. And I don't know, I think it would be so fun to be a DJ. So maybe in a future life when I actually get skills, because you can't just go up there and pretend. So I just want to give the good vibes. I love a good party. I love the good vibes at a great dance party. And in Buffalo, okay, so I'm from Buffalo, and there are some of the funnest parties in Buffalo. If you're ever up there, find me on Facebook. I'll tell you where they're at. So they're these warehouse parties that really cool DJs come to from all over. There's a lot in Buffalo, but people from Toronto and Pittsburgh and Detroit it's all kind of in that same area. Well, a couple hours from Buffalo. So they come through and put on a great show with cool lights, and it's a really fun crowd too. So I really learned a lot when I lived in Buffalo for 2 years. I think what's so beautiful about it up there is the community and the sense of friendship, and everybody just sticks together, and we all it's a small enough town where you see each other out. And see, I'm kind of getting teared up thinking about my friends in Buffalo. One time I looked on Facebook and I'm I have 80 friends in Buffalo, and I haven't lived there for over a year. I lived there and I just couldn't get out of this cycle of bartending, actually. So I just couldn't find a job. I was applying for marketing positions, but then I'm I don't want to be a marketing director at the local theater company. I wanted something more, but I didn't really know what that was. And it's not it's not in Buffalo, I just couldn't find it. So I just got stuck in these restaurant jobs. And being vegan, there was actually no vegan restaurants when I first moved there, but now there's one called Root and Bloom, which is amazing. But working around dead animals and the people that come in and just want to eat them, it's freaky, and it grossed me out, and I'd leave annoyed all the time. And then I had some experiences with it's like, I don't know, bosses that are like owners of the restaurant that give you shit about stuff, and you're like, come on, I'm like 40 years old, I'm bartending, and then I'm like, that's my fault. What the hell am I doing? So I moved from Buffalo back to LA. I've lived in LA 3 different times over the past 10 years. And 10 years ago, I mentioned in my podcast number 1, I had just left a marriage. I left my person that I dated after my marriage, and I was like living in South Carolina. So I had an ad agency out there called Pure Creative. So, I owned a condo. I'm like, I can't live in South Carolina. It was kind of close to North Carolina, but for like a young single person, and I just kind of deconverted from my faith, and I was trying to explore like, what is this world? Jesus doesn't exist. There's no heaven. What's a body? I'm like in a constant state of confusion, I would say. Especially back then. I mean, I am a bit now, but back then, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I coped, actually it might have been easier because I knew less. But so 10 years ago, I sold my condo, left a community in Charlotte, which actually I have a great group of friends out there as well. I started a film community out there, Charlotte Film Community, which is still alive today. And I moved to LA to be an actress. And also I did this documentary called Divorcing God. So I wanted to explore what was going on in my head back then. And ended up being a documentary about this couple that didn't kiss before they got married. And then they divorced throughout the course of my film, which made it kind of an interesting film. So I had this film, I'm playing it all over Europe at the time. I was playing it at this traveling festival called United Film Festivals around the US. And I was like, oh, I'll go to LA and I'll, learn filmmaking and I'll learn to be an actress. And then I was like in for a rude awakening because I get to LA, can't really, oh my gosh, it's such a long story, but get to LA, can't find acting jobs because I didn't even know how to carry myself, let alone act. I'd been in some theater performances in college, did a few low budget commercials in North Carolina. I'll have to show you my really bad car commercial someday. It's embarrassing. So anyway, I get there and just kind of floundered around. But the one great thing that happened is I found the Laugh Factory, which is a comedy club in Hollywood, and I started cocktail waitressing there. So after a few years doing that, I was invited to run the Chicago Laugh Factory. So I ran into my boss. I'd quit already because, I'm always quitting jobs. And so I quit, and I was in the Chicago airport during a layover to go see my family in Buffalo for my dad's birthday. And I ran into my old boss, and he was like, Maggie, you have a good work ethic. I don't know if he was blowing smoke or what, but he's like, will you move to Chicago and help me with my club? So I moved to Chicago, spent a couple years there, built the club up. It's actually one of the success stories in my life. I'm really proud of it. And a lot of the comedians that kind of came up in that time are on Netflix now. Some of my friends. I was just watching Drew Michael tonight, Chris Redd on Saturday Night Live, Megan Gailey, Lisa Traeger. All these people were just coming to the club for the first time when I was a manager there. So super cool. Loved managing comedy clubs. Left there to go back to LA though, because I'm like, I didn't love Chicago. It was cold. Because I was the boss, I wasn't really connecting, and I was young, so I didn't know how to find my own life outside of work. And I didn't want to get too integrated in the drama of all of the servers and the people that worked there, because you can't really do that as a boss. Well, I didn't really even know what I was doing. I was just trying my best. So I didn't have a community there, and I was just going through this major depression. I remember I painted a whole part of my wall in chalkboard paint, and I wrote all these thoughts I was having, and then I started this blog, and I had this entry it was like a blog through this place called Chicago Now. They were connected to the newspaper, and had this entry that said, it was an Albert Camus quote that said, should I kill myself or have a cup of coffee? Or maybe it's, should I have a cup of coffee or kill myself? And I was just like thinking, if I could press the delete button on my life, I would. I don't want to actually kill myself, but I would just not be alive. And I wrote this blog post about it, and somehow, even though I had a secret name, my mom found it. I think that she found it through this picture that I'd posted from a Christmas party at this blog site, and then she like tracked. She's like a good sleuth, Mom. Don't watch this podcast though, you'll know too much. I'm just joking, I don't care anymore. I mean, it was traumatic in high school, but you know what, I gotta let that go. So she found it and she called me and was like, Maggie, what's going on? Are you wanting to commit suicide? And I realized, like, I am not okay. I was not okay in Chicago. I couldn't get okay. I didn't know how to get okay. So when I don't know how to get okay, I just move. And oh my God, it is so tiring. It's so tiring. Does anyone know how to help me? So I didn't even plan to go into all this in this podcast, but I'll just finish a little bit, or I'll just continue my story. So, Chicago, moved back to LA, spent a couple years there, and then I went to Italy for the first time to go to this festival, and then I'm going to fast forward because I don't want to talk about all this now. We'll do it another time. Boom, boom, boom. Third time in LA. Now I live there. I have a great little room. It's like this size. It's all white. And I've been traveling mainly throughout the year, doing camera operating work. I'm starting to make films and create content. So that is the next chapter in my life. So I just got done in Italy at this film festival where we made a different film every week with a group of international students or just people that are interested in filmmaking. And I produced 3 films and directed 2. So you'll be seeing those soon. And you'll see my style and like the genre I'm interested in. It's kind of like a yoga sci-fi, I like to call it. I like stuff that explores concepts of our self-awareness, yoga, which is like the union of mind and body. Yoga means to yoke. I like futuristic technology, like Black Mirror type stuff. So that is one of the genres I'm trying to get good at. So you'll see my movies, I'll post them. Okay, what do I want to talk about? I'm going to get to the point. The point is I'm in Greece and I wanted to talk about friendships today and why friendships dissolve and should we try to get them back. And the answer to everything is it depends. So something that recently happened was I accepted an invitation from a lady to come visit her in Greece. And she was a person that was working in animal rights, and I met her at a conference, and she had this vision to help street dogs here to be connected with food from hospitals. And I shared a similar vision for humans. I wanted to connect humans with food from restaurants that was just going to get thrown out at the end of the night. So I'm trying to create an app that does this, and maybe using like an Uber Eats or some kind of Postmates service. So it's a simple concept, but it's going to take a buy-in from a delivery service. It will probably take a lot of money to create an app, marketing, all that, PR. So I've been kind of trying to figure this out for several months because I really think that it's a missing link to, maybe it's not a missing link, but it's an important link in giving people a little bit of relief because people are struggling financially right now. And, again, living in LA, I see it so much. There's a whole group of people, my age, my level of education and experience, and even and beyond that and less than that are just not finding jobs. And even if they have a job, they're working for low wages, high rent. Skid Row, which is where people live in tents and are homeless, has gotten huge. It's like everywhere. Everywhere you go in LA, there's people living in tents, and and at the same time, we have all this food that's being thrown out from restaurants, and these animals their lives are being, I'd say they're sacrificing their lives, but they're doing it against their will. So I'd say they're being murdered and tortured and used, because like their milk is being used, the cows are being raped to stay pregnant, and then their babies are being taken away from them and killed many times, or just put in tiny little houses, chained up, and also used. And then these women cows are just being like, can you imagine being pregnant every single month of your life just to produce milk? And then what that would do to the body, what that does to the hormones. And then you can't even be by your baby that you're bonded with. And then it happens again and again and again. And then you're literally picked up from what do you call it, like a claw, like a bulldozer, and your body's dropped alive in a big mass grave. So it's like the women, cows, the female reproductive organs and lives are just being exploited and harmed, and it's like the most fucked up industry. I'm sorry, the dairy industry is awful, and the egg industry is just as bad, because they're taking little male chicks and they're throwing them in a blender, basically called a color. I think it's called culling. And the male chicks aren't of any use, but the females, again, it's like a use of the female body. And they're taking these hens, they're giving them drugs, so they're basically getting their periods all the time. Can you imagine what that would do to the body? How that would make your brain and your feeling, your like the body, the way the body feels, what it would do to your body if your insides are being manipulated to just lay eggs all the time, and their beaks are being cut off so they don't peck each other to death. They live in complete darkness. They're not cared for. It's really messed up, the egg and dairy industry. And then we could keep on going to talk about how pigs are put in gestation crates, and they can't even move. They can't even roll around. You can do some Googling of it. This isn't even the purpose of this particular podcast. I'll do another one that explains things more, but there's so many resources online now that you can go to see what happens to animals. So I'm going to check the camera real quick. Hang on. Okay, so, all right, we're talking about factory farming and the egg industry, dairy industry. Where was I going? I'm sorry. We're talking about things that are normal, that seem normal, but actually aren't. And I was saying my podcast name is called YB Lamron, named after my bud Julia. Julia taught me about sex in 5th grade. I had no idea. I actually heard it from Julia first, and then I went to the basement and I was reading a book, like I don't know, like a Nancy Drew type book or something. And then in the book they were having sex, and so I was like, oh, that's what happens. So Julia had a t-shirt, loved it, called my podcast this many years later, YB Lamron. We're talking about friendships. I'm in Greece, and I was invited to a lady's house, and I knew this is what I wanted to say about gut instincts. All right. When I first met this woman, I knew that she was not the right fit for me energetically, because there's a word, phenomenology, and it means what the body feels. So what I want to say is pay attention to what the body feels, because if somebody makes you feel weird, it's a red flag that something is off energetically with you too. So there's nothing actually wrong with this person. It's just that she made me feel weird. I didn't really want to be around her, but then she invited me to come to Greece, and I thought, okay, we can work together on this project I was telling you about reducing waste. She wanted to do it for street dogs. I wanted to do it for human animals, and didn't work out. So I'm in an Airbnb. I had to leave. I had to tell her. Because of this thing that happened with a Facebook ad. I'll tell the story really quick, but when I got to her house, the first project we worked on together was putting together an event page for her birthday. And sometimes it's okay, I'll just tell you what happened without giving unsolicited advice. So I was putting together this Facebook ad for her, and there's a vertical picture, so it's like a picture like this, and she wanted this vertical picture to go in the event cover photo, which is horizontal, and was getting really frustrated. And I said, well, there's no way to do that without putting white space on either side, and I can do that for you, but then we're going to have to fill the white space. And immediately, I don't know if it was her state of mind or if it was her level of anxiety, but she got very annoyed at just the whole process. So I sat with her. She had like a notepad with all these check marks, all the people she wanted to invite, and who was on Facebook and who wasn't. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you can't put so much emphasis on this event invitation, because we'll do it, but a lot of people don't check Facebook. So, we had to take it with a grain of salt. It was like I had an understanding about what the tool of Facebook was, but she was actually thinking that it was something different to her. And we each had different realities about this experience. So I'm going to take a break for a minute. Okay. Key. Okay, hi guys, I'm back. It's weird being a human, isn't it? I feel so confused all the time, and I feel like everything is really hard to deal with. I just have moments sometimes where I don't know if I can continue. Like, I'm going to continue, but I'm thinking, okay, I've been here 41 years. I feel really alone. I feel like alone in the world, and I don't know how to shake that feeling. I don't know that the delusion that I'll find somebody is like another person, a man, I guess. Like, how logical is that? But I would like that, because I think it would help me in my mind. But maybe I'm just kind of destined to be alone. I have work to do. I'm trying to raise awareness about what happens to factory farmed animals. I'm like halfway across the earth right now. Like, why? What am I running around doing? I've been just either in two modes. I'm either trying to distract myself, or when I'm alone, I'm faced with harsh realities about my own self. I don't always like myself. I called my friend today. I have a friend that I'm always telling him when I'm hating myself, and he listens to me and is like, you're in a good spot when you just are realizing all your own shit. It's the kind of hatred of oneself where you just are calling yourself out on your own shit and your own inauthenticities, and the areas where you are not being truthful with your own self. And I feel like that's a lot of what's been going on in my life lately. Like, I've seen a lot of things about myself that I don't want to necessarily face. My intentions with some people, my honesty level with myself mainly. And I try to be honest with other people, but when I'm not like super clear with like why I'm doing something, then it's like I'm out of alignment with the person that I want to be. So it's like a lot of work to figure out how am I going to raise up to be this person that I want to be, because in a lot of senses, when I start to think like this, I just want to sleep. I want to drink. I want to distract. I'll distract in different ways. I'll distract by like trying to invite some drama into my life, trying to like get involved in other people's drama. That's the equivalent to me of like listening to gossip, or having a friend that's having boyfriend problems and you just sit on the phone and speculate about this and that. It's like cotton candy time. Like there's nothing actually being accomplished, but you're just kind of like in a world where you don't have to face stuff that you have to straighten out about your own self. My own reason, like my own instability, my own reaction of moving every 2 years when I start to get feeling like I'm in a place that I shouldn't be, or being a serial dater, like literally going from relationship to relationship. They're not even relationships, and like being attracted to the guys that don't even want anything to do with me. They like are completely unavailable emotionally, so they don't want to actually deal with any of my shit. I don't know why anyone would want to deal with somebody else's shit. I like you get to a certain age too, you've been through enough, like you bring a lot to the relationship, and to bring that into somebody's life is something that like is not fair to do. So I consider myself undateable in a lot of ways, but I'm still lonely, and that's a lot. So this isn't even what I wanted to talk about today. What I really wanted to talk about was the loss of a couple of friendships that I've had lately and what happened, because I just got a little bit of clarity on my trip to Greece about a way of being that everything comes back to us, right? We are bringing situations and people into our lives, usually over and over and over again, because of something that we haven't really resolved about our own self. So what I realized when I came to Greece is that I came on an invitation from somebody that I had just met, and she invited me to come stay in her house free for a week in exchange for helping with this business idea, which I was explaining earlier. She wanted to help alleviate like food waste of hospitals and feed that to street dogs in Greece. I wanted to do the same with restaurants and feed it to human animals in the United States. So we had some like congruency in our mission in a way, but here's like two things I didn't pay attention to in my own self when I met her were that, first of all, she made me feel weird when I first met her. So we're all out, drinking and dancing and having a good time at this work event I was at, and I didn't want to keep talking to her. I was kind of like, oh, you make me feel a little weird, but she was really interested in me, and I let that go. I just didn't pay too close of attention to that. I just thought, oh, she's a nice lady that, wants to pay attention to me, and that felt good, right? Again, a dishonesty with myself, that I was like liking her company not for who she was, but for how she made me feel about myself. Like, she was interested in me, she listened, she asked questions, she was curious. So like I liked giving her all that of me, but I didn't want to reciprocate that because I didn't actually really like her. But this is just a feeling. This is nothing she did. This is just like, how sometimes you get into some people and you're not into other people. So it's just a truth that existed, that I did not I was not honest with myself about. The second thing that happened was I knew, again, being dishonest with myself, that I wanted a free trip to Greece. And it was a free place to stay. I just had to get myself there. And I knew I was already going to be in Italy beforehand, and it wasn't going to cost much to get over, to get a plane ticket here. So, two things. When you want something free, there's always a cost to it. So even though I had a free place to stay, it's still in somebody else's space. So when you're in somebody else's space, you play by their rules. Even if it's not written or said, especially, it's not going to be written or said if it's a short-term stay, but it's going to be implied, and at the very least, it's going to be energetic. So whatever that person's energy is, if you are living in tight quarters with them, okay, depending on how big of a place they have or how much freedom you have in the space or in the expectations of what they're expecting of you when you come and stay in their space, that you are going to take on, if you're a similar minded person, if you're like an empathetic person, if you take on other people's energy, you're going to take on their energy. And that's what happened. Okay, so I had these two like kind of like red flags, and they were just like, not even with her, with my own self, right? Not being honest with myself. I come to Greece. I end up being in a house with a very small apartment with a person that is not at a good spot in their life right now. So she's looking for a job, doesn't know what her next move is, and is trying to find a place to stay, find a job. She has a birthday coming up and is very, very anxious about getting this Facebook event out. So she's got a lot going on and is like, I could feel it in the house. I could feel it when we sat down and worked on her invitation for her party together. So she had me like adjust the cover image and help her with like inviting people on Facebook, which I was happy to do. But once I started into the project, I realized that this is not the kind of person that I want to start a business with. I just, by the way I felt and the anxiety I was feeling just being around her. So it's not necessarily that this is her state of being forever, right? I think people change, and depending on if they have stability and happiness in their life, in like what's going on with them, that they exude a different energy. So at this point in time though, the way that she was kind of making me feel, and the way she was getting really, really stressed out about what I thought was kind of a simple task, the way I was even talked to as I was doing things for her, really freaked me out in a way, because I felt trapped. I felt like, oh my God, I agreed to stay with this woman. I don't want to be in business with her. I really at this point didn't even want to be her friend. And it was because I could not take on all of this that she was putting out there. So I told her, I said, I'm going to get an Airbnb, and she was not happy about it. It got weird, and I left, and we haven't talked since. So that's been on my mind. But what it really helped me understand was a bigger issue that happened in January with a very, very close friend of mine that I moved in with. And something similar happened because I moved in with her, and then she needed some help around the house because she has some like special needs that she needs to take care of. So she has some physical issues that she needs help with. So I agreed to help her with that. And at the same time, she's trying to get a big project off the ground, and she's also an activist, and I've known her for years. So the problem was, when I agreed to stay with her, we mixed like an exchange of money for services. And also, it was a similar situation where neither of us had stability in our lives. So here we are, my very good friend is anxious about how to make money, how to like continue physically with some of the things she's dealing with. I had just driven cross country from Buffalo because I had another meltdown and felt like I needed to go back to LA because I wasn't getting anywhere in Buffalo. And then I'd had all these like heartbreaks from guys that I thought I liked, but then they didn't like me back. And it just like my state of mind was also not good. So we have two of us living in the same house together with expectations now on results. So it's like all, and then add on to that a business agreement. So she was paying me, I was paying her rent. It was still more, I was paying her more money than she was paying me per month to work for her, but it was still like, I felt like it was too low for my experience level. But then again, I didn't articulate that in the beginning until, things crept in. And, I won't even get into the whole story, but this is what I realized. It's like when you are living with somebody that is not in a stable place, they are going to transfer anxiety on you. And the same thing, you are going to transfer anxiety onto them. And it's going to affect the relationship. And this sounds like kindergarten stuff, right? But I realized that it affects friendships. So if you're friends and you are not in stable places and you decide to live together, some stuff's going to go down probably. And you might need to take a pause from your relationship, like switch up the living situation. I mean, I'm not going to give anybody advice because like every situation is so complex and it has so many different factors involved in it. But this was a realization that I had about my very good friend. So I decided I wanted to not live with friends for a while, and I met somebody that I didn't know beforehand, and she's in a stable place, like mentally. We can always be doing better, I think. Like most humans probably need a little bit more money to live, a little bit more stability, but there's like a level of stable. So I just wanted to share that. Since all this happened, I got involved with a public speaking group. I started taking this course. It's a personal efficiency course, and it's related to the speaking group. And I've been trying to take steps to work on my own self and kind of going back to some philosophies that I learned in this course called Landmark that I took a couple of years ago that really helped me. It's like an intensive weekend course, and then I took a few more after that. But it's like you forget, you go through life and you have, for me at least, I've learned things along the way, and then I just, like, life happens and I forget. So I'm working on becoming more aware of why I do the things that I do, and trying to not react so much. And also knowing that with friendships, that there's a time sometimes where, for our own reasons, we need to pause it. I think I had to pause it with my friend, my one that from the beginning of the year. Sometimes you need to stop it completely. Sometimes, they come back, sometimes they don't. So that's all I got to say about friendships. I'd love to hear your stories about friends that you've had and that maybe that you've had to cut out of your life. Maybe they've cut you out of their life. I'd like to know what's going on and learn from you too. So this is a little rambly, I'm going to work on that. So thanks for watching, and have a beautiful rest of your day, okay? I'm going to go out dancing. Okay, bye.